Hi, everybody. I'm Ross the Boss, and I don't want to talk sports and NFL playoffs with you, cowboy. Kasey Shienvold. He's my co-host today. Vlad to the bone. Kasey Shienvold.
Still basking in the glow of the Giants' victory. That's all I can say.
Kasey, I was 5 for 5 with my picks. Is that correct? Or
I think so. I don't think you got anyone wrong. The only one we disagreed on was the one I got wrong. I thought the Buccaneers would put up a little bit of a fight. I mean that was.
Let's talk about yesterday's game. Did you watch the massacre? I mean, it was hard to watch. I turned it off
pretty early. There wasn't a lot of hope, although I did enjoy watching Dallas's kicker.
Let's talk about Brett Maher. If you guys haven't heard, 4 straight extra point misses. Of course, that's a record in playoff football.
Well, have you ever seen a score where they score 31 total points and the quarterback throws for 5 touchdowns?
No, never seen that. And I've been looking at the wire all morning, seeing if this guy is going to be cut or if they're looking at other kickers. I think they're going to keep him. He had a good year. I mean, he really did.
I know. I don't know what happened.
I had him in fantasy this year in one of our leagues, and he was great. He was averaging like 10 or 11 points a game. He was terrific. He had a bad game. Tom Brady, what do you think? Last game we'll ever see him play, or you'll be playing next year?
Yeah. I think he's done. I know you don't want to go out that way, but I got to imagine that he's done after this. I don't see how you come back from it.
Well, I don't know if you've been reading the paper today, but the 49ers have interest in Tom Brady to be their quarterback next year. I don't get it. I don't understand why they would go out and say that. I mean, they have 3 young quarterbacks. Garoppolo, I'll say he's young, but he's not that young. But they have 3 young guys that are capable of doing that job. And now they're talking about bringing Tom Brady in. What is going on?
It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, what can he do that Brock Purdy hasn't done?
I don't know. Brock Purdy, as much as we want him, not as much as everybody wants him to fail, who's not a 49er fan, this guy looks good. Every game he looks great. I mean,
and what does it say about their thoughts on Trey Lance at this point? Are they just
he's done?
That he's done?
They'll be getting a draft pick for him. They'll be trading him on draft day.
You think?
I think so. Trey Lance will be on another team on draft day. Maybe they'll get a first rounder. I don't think they will. Maybe a second rounder for him.
Where do you think he goes? I have a thought.
Well, these are the 5 teams, I think. Carolina.
Yeah.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
New Orleans.
Okay.
And then 4 or 5, you're going to say, why are you saying 4 or 5? New England. I think New England may want another quarterback there. I don't think they're sold on Mac Jones, and I don't think, I think he's a very dirty player, and I don't think there's room for that. And I'm going to say Houston. So,
okay.
I'm going to say those 5 teams. I could, Josh Fields could be gone. I don't know. I don't know what's going on in Chicago with
Justin Fields.
Justin Fields.
What pick do you think? What round pick do you think he'll go for? Will he go for a first, or do you think it'll be?
I said second. I think it'll be a second rounder. Garoppolo, they can't afford. I mean,
here's my prediction.
Yeah,
I have 2. Either the Miami Dolphins.
So they're done with Tua. Wow.
Well, concussions got that many concussions in a year have to scare you for his long-term viability. McDaniel was with San Francisco when they drafted Trey Lance, and he might have been the guy who was going to be responsible for kind of grooming him. And then, so I think that could be a fit. And he has relationships with the San Francisco front office. And second, the Washington Commanders.
Hail to those Commanders. I was thinking about that Miami Dolphins. If Tua is not going to play next year, and there's a possibility, you're right, because of concussions and everything else. I mean, if I could go to a place, if I was a quarterback, an older quarterback, let's say 39 years old, and right now I'm playing in Green Bay.
In a really cold climate. Let's not get specific. Let's say somewhere around Wisconsin.
I'm not saying he plays in Green Bay, and he's 39 years old. I'm not saying anybody's name right now. I'm not calling anybody out. So if I'm that guy, and I see Waddle and Hill on my team, and I'm playing in the warm, beautiful weather in Miami, Florida, I would probably play for league minimum if I get that possibility, because you're going to have a huge year. You're going to have a huge MVP year. Plus, your team's going to go pretty far in the playoffs.
Yeah, now they have to fix their defense a little bit, but
They'll fix it. They'll fix it. They had some major injuries. Their defense was not bad beginning of the year. They were playing really well. Then a couple of their
yeah, their
DBs went
secondary
down, and
got
their
crushed,
linebacker
I
went
think.
down, and one of their defensive rushers went down. I mean, they had some horrible injuries. Kasey Shienvold, horrible injuries.
Horrible.
So yesterday's game. I mean, Dallas, as I predicted it, you took Tampa. That was the only game we kind of disagreed on. I mean, I just knew the Cowboys would pick it up and play well.
I just enjoyed the fact that it's been so long since they had won a playoff game, and I wanted that
Oh
misery to
yeah.
continue.
Oh, it's
So,
been many years since they won a playoff. I mean, I think VCRs were in existence when they won a
did
playoff
Tony
game last.
Romo ever win a playoff game?
I mean, his record in playoffs were horrible,
Yeah.
horrible. I have no idea, but horrible. So, I mean, and let's go back on Sunday night. My Bengals, who did not score a point offensively in the second half, they looked horrible.
Yeah, you were predicting a blowout, and I was
They
talking up the Ravens defense. I said you can't sell the Ravens defense short, but that I mean, it was at least they won. Hey, you just have to win by one to advance. So
I mean, the Bengals' offensive line is in disarray. They had another major injury on Sunday. Their offensive tackle Williams, who's one of their starters, is out. He hurt something wrong with his kneecap, dislocated it. Horrible injury. I never had that on my body, but it sounds horrible.
it sounds terrible. Yeah.
Horrible. The Bengals are going to Buffalo. We'll talk about the games at the end, but I feel the Bengals got their bad game out of their system, and I feel they're going to give Buffalo a good game.
It's not like Buffalo's offensive line is playing all that much better than the Bengals right now. And who led the league in turnovers from the quarterback position? Josh Allen.
I think Allen's. Well, I thought somebody else had. I thought Dak had one more interception than him. I think
total turnovers.
Turnovers. You're right. Okay.
And he had the most multiple interception games, I think.
No argument. So I feel the Buffalo team did not look good. They, Skylar Thompson was their quarterback, and his time management on that game was horrible. The coach of the Dolphins was like vaping on the line. I mean, what? He's vaping? Seriously? You're vaping during a game. I mean,
if you need your fix, you need your fix.
Listen, vaping, first of all, is horrible for your body. Horrible. It's all like plastics and all that stuff. It's not good for you kids. Don't vape. Just go smoke tobacco and vape. Okay, do that. Don't vape. Trust me. The second thing is the time management was just horrible. How they were called, just horrible.
Yeah, and McDaniel then initially took responsibility for it. Then didn't he then throw other people under the bus?
Oh yeah, he threw the offensive coordinator. He threw Skylar Thompson. He was throwing everybody under the bus. I mean, again, the Dolphins had a good season. He should be happy he made the playoffs. He had a lot of horrible injuries this year. I get it. I understand. They made the playoffs. It's a huge win for Miami, I feel. And I think Miami, with those two receivers, Wilder and Hill next year, I think they're going to be a team to reckon with. But learn how to manage a clock, and it was sad when Skylar Thompson was their starting quarterback, a rookie who's from Independence, Missouri. Can you tell me the famous president who's from Independence?
They announced it during the game, and I'm blanking.
Harry S. Truman. I did a report.
Harry S. Truman.
Yeah. I did a report on him in grammar school. That's why I knew that. Kasey Shienvold.
While he was president, you were in grammar school, right?
Exactly. He was. Exactly. You son of a. So let's go to the next game. We'll talk about your Giants Vikings.
Oh.
I mean, we both predicted the Giants would win that game. I mean. And you watched it. Oh, I think you watched it. I think you heard it on the radio. I
had to listen to it on the radio. I saw the last 10 minutes of the game when I got home from the soccer.
I mean, the Giants look good. Barkley looked great. I mean, what's your thoughts on the game? Do you think the Giants can beat the Eagles? What's your whole thoughts on the Giants now?
I think, that game was the best the Giants could play. I got, obviously, when Darius Slayton dropped that pass on third down, when they could have put the game to bed there in the final drive they had, that drop made me worried. Then it was the worst roughing the passer call I've seen in a very long time.
Horrible.
They even got Gene Steratore, whoever their rules, they were like, tell us why you got the flag here. And even him, the analyst, was like, I don't know. What do you want him to do? Sit down? Like, it was horrible. But, Kirk Cousins was what Kirk Cousins has always been, which is not really clutch when they need him the most. I know he had a lot of game-winning drives this season because they won a lot of games by 1 point, but coming back from a large deficit, other than the game against the Colts, he's never been able to do. So,
no.
I mean, to throw a pass on, what was it, 4th and 9, to throw a 3-yard pass and expect your tight end to beat the coverage and then run an extra 6 or 7 yards. Like, it's not Justin Jefferson or Dalvin Cook with the ball. You can't expect that. You got to throw it past the sticks.
Is Justin Jefferson, is he still, listen, I'm talking about not a super flex, a regular league. Is he still your number 1 pick for next season?
Yes. Yeah. Because they bracket coveraged him and shut him down the last 2 weeks of the season, doesn't mean he's still not going to get 1,600 yards and 10 touchdowns. They're going to have all off season to come up to scheme ways to find him opportunities, even in double coverage. They'll probably have a better quarterback throwing to him, And so I don't see any reason to dock him because of these last 2 games. And
then let's talk about Dalvin Cook. 1st round pick next year. I don't have him.
No, first round. He's anymore. A 2nd round pick only because I think he's a 2nd round only because the potential is there and he is explosive and he doesn't have a timeshare, right? Alexander Mattison might be the best handcuff in football, but he doesn't get carries when Dalvin Cook is healthy. He gets 5 to 6 carries a game. I can name like 7 better running backs right now. I'd rather have on my team than Dalvin Cook. That's why I don't have him in the 2nd round. And there's the receivers. And I told you, strategy for next season is I want either Josh Allen or Mahomes on my team or Joe Burrow. I want one of those top 3 guys as my quarterback. And I'll still go with Jalen Hurts as in that.
Jalen Hurts, I'll throw him in there. So that's 4. I would say we talked about 5: Hurts, Mahomes, Burrow, all in there, obviously. Allen.
But then it's Justin Herbert or I don't know, Lamar Jackson if he's healthy, I guess.
We'll get there. Let's talk about the Baltimore team. We talked about Cincinnati, but let's talk Baltimore real quick. Lamar Jackson, I don't think he's going to be a Raven next year. I think it's done. I think he'll be moving on. I feel that he could have played. I just feel he was protecting himself because he didn't want to get hurt.
And he didn't see them winning the game. Yeah,
I just felt he didn't want to play. And I think a lot of people called him out on social media. A lot of ex-ball players, especially for the Ravens, called him out. And he wanted nothing to do with that game. So he kind of hid and said he was hurt, which is fine, but they lost. And now the Ravens, I don't think, are so high of like giving this guy $200-something million, especially he's like representing himself or his mom represents him. So, I mean, do you feel he'll be a Raven next year? Do you see him playing for Baltimore or is it Huntley's job?
I don't think Huntley did enough to make them feel like he could carry the torch. That's the issue. It's not that Lamar Jackson is that great. When he's healthy, he's proven he can be a franchise quarterback.
He was MVP.
The question is,
MVP guy. I mean, come on.
Do you think John Harbaugh is still the coach next year? Do you think Harbaugh is maybe running into the end of his kind of useful life? Because there's this kind of belief in almost all professional sports that you have a shelf life as a coach for a specific team, unless you're one of the super great coaches, right? Unless you're one of the biggest names there are, the Bill Belichick's and the Andy Reids, these guys who are kind of transcendent. After 6 or 7 years, you lose the locker room, you lose the players, your style is no longer as effective, and new blood might be needed. And I'm wondering if Harbaugh is falling into that kind of zone.
I just feel Baltimore had a lot of major injuries, including Lamar Jackson, including Dopkins. I mean, including their receiving core was decimated. They probably had the worst receiving core in the NFL.
I would argue that my Giants are up there.
Well, Listen, I just feel Baltimore's a little worse. They're not that good.
Yeah.
Except for Mark Andrews. He's the bright spot as receivers. He is really good. But overall, I just feel that Harbaugh is not really dealt great cards this year, especially with the injury to Lamar Jackson. He did the best he could. He got them to the playoffs. He was almost beat the Bengals. He came close. I mean, they were 2 yards away, and that idiot put his football out, and they took it and ran it 98 yards. If that never happened, the Ravens could have easily won that game. I mean, I'm a Bengal fan too, and I'm just being honest with everybody. And if I love to hear your comments. If you guys are watching and want to comment about the Bengals victory, go ahead. I'm a Bengal fan, so I'll totally tell you guys the truth. I'm not hiding behind my alliance to the Bengals.
Yeah.
But again, I think Harbaugh will have that job for a while. The thing is, okay, you fire Harbaugh. Who are you going to hire? Who's out there?
Well, I mean, I don't know why Eric Bieniemy hasn't been given a shot yet.
He interviewed, and I think he'll be a head coach this year.
Right, but I think, Lamar Jackson could benefit from an offensive-minded coach. I just think, if you look at the successful mobile quarterbacks, they need somebody who can coach the offense.
And also,
right?
Byron Leftwich, who was the offensive coordinator in Jacksonville, was fired today. For Tampa. I like Byron. Remember, he was a quarterback for Jacksonville.
He played for Jacksonville. That's what I remember him as. Yeah.
I had him in fantasy a couple of years. So I like Byron too. I think he could be a head coach. I said that.
What about Sean Payton?
Who?
Sean Payton.
He's interviewing.
He interviewed with Houston, didn't he?
I saw Houston. I still feel
you like the Cowboys.
Yeah, but they won their game.
If they beat San Francisco this week, there's no way you can get rid of McCarthy.
I mean, Payton, I think, is going to go somewhere. I thought maybe they were talking about the Chargers, but the Chargers fired their offensive coordinator, so maybe Staley's going to keep his job now. I don't know.
I don't know how Staley can after.
I mean, they fired the offensive coordinator.
I know, but
they usually fire the head coach first.
So first he left all his starters in a meaningless game in Week 18. Then he blows a 27-point lead.
And Mike Williams, who is one of the starters, gets hurt in that meaningless game.
Yeah, I don't see how he keeps his job.
And he was with 27-0, right? And they lost the game to Jacksonville, who is not like an offensive machine like other teams that could come back and win. But kudos to them. Let's talk about that game real quick. Jacksonville was at home against the Chargers. Everybody thought the game was over.
Interceptions in the first half.
He had 4, correct?
In the first half, he threw 4 interceptions. In the second half, he threw 4 touchdowns.
Trevor Lawrence, who had 4 interceptions in the first half, and everybody thought the game was over, even me.
I did. I certainly didn't.
And then they did score that touchdown to end the first half.
Evan Engram, you called that one. I think you said Engram last week, didn't you?
I loved Engram next. I loved Engram. I think he's going to have a big game this week too, against Kansas City. But all that being said, the Jacksonville Jaguars came back. They won the game. I mean, it was an exciting game. All the games were pretty exciting to watch this last weekend. Even the blowout. You just wanted to watch Brady possibly play his last game. So
break another iPad.
Yeah. So all the games, all the playoff games were fun. That game alone was just like, you and I even said it, that's going to be one of the best games on the whole chart, that and the Giants game. But all the games ended up being good. I mean, what's your thoughts on that game, and what's your thoughts on Jacksonville maybe getting some momentum and going to Kansas City and beating Kansas City? What do you think about that?
I think they're going to have to play better first half defense and protect the ball a little better in the first half, because I don't see Kansas City allowing a 27-point lead to slip away.
No, I don't see it either. And
I do think this is going to be a blowout. I got to be honest. Wow. I think it'll be.
We haven't got there yet, but we will talk about that game.
31-17, 31-14, somewhere in that range.
Listen, let's talk about the next game. The Buffalo Bills were at home. It wasn't that cold during the game, really. They played Miami. Miami was.
It was like 30-some degrees. It was above freezing.
Miami was winning. Like in the middle of the game, they were winning. I mean, it wasn't like we're 17-16. I think Miami was winning at one time
because of that fumble recovery touchdown.
Yeah.
Right?
So again, Miami played really well. Buffalo did not look great. Did not look like an AFC Championship team to me. And let's talk about that game when they, alone. What's your thought? Did you see the game? Did you like the game? What are your
I
thoughts?
watched a good bit of the game. I enjoyed watching it. I didn't think, for most of the game, I thought Skylar Thompson held his own. Josh Allen, I was listening to an analyst after the game, after the Sunday games, who said Daniel Jones did a better job of being Josh Allen than Josh Allen did this weekend. And because he wasn't efficient with his running, I don't think he was very effective on the ground. He wasn't real accurate with his passing. His decision-making wasn't great. Remember, he had the big fumble for a touchdown. He actually fumbled on one that they overruled and said the ball was over the touchline or had crossed the touchline before he fumbled, and they gave him the touchdown. Buffalo did not win that game. Miami lost that game.
I agree, and they lost it with their third string quarterback. And I said if Tua was playing that game, I think it would have been a little different.
Yeah, healthy Tua. I think a healthy Teddy Bridgewater probably would have won that game.
So next year, where do you take Hill in the draft next year? First round?
First round. He's a first round pick.
Waddle.
Waddle's probably a second round pick until he does it another year in a row.
Diggs.
First round.
Who do you take first, Cook or Singletary in your fantasy draft next year?
I think Cook will have a bigger role than Singletary. I think neither of them are above the fourth or fifth round, but I think Cook will have a bigger role.
Should Josh Allen be the first quarterback taken next year?
Ooh. Yes.
Over Mahomes. That's a big statement, Kasey Shienvold.
Because of his legs. Listen,
he can still. I'm not. There's no argument.
He can still
Josh
run
Allen
for 6 or 7 touchdowns.
If I have a first pick in the Superflex league, I probably would take Josh Allen. How about that? I did it last year. Josh Allen's probably still my first pick in the Super Draft league. I just feel he's always looking to score, running, passing, doesn't matter.
And he has Diggs and Gabe Davis and McKenzie. I mean, he has weapons too. And James Cook is a receiving wide receiver, is a receiving back. So yeah, and he is their goal line back.
Yep. So let's talk about the games coming up on Saturday. We got 2 unbelievable games. Let me see. What's the first game, Kasey? It's
the first game next weekend is I know the Giants are the night game. So let's see. In the division round, the first game is the Jacksonville, Kansas City game.
The Jacksonville, Kansas City, 10:30. 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 where you live. Kansas City's favored by 8.5 points. I think Kansas City's going to blow them out. I think Kansas City.
Yeah, that's what I said. I think it's 30. I said 31-14.
Yeah, I think Kansas City had 2 weeks to prepare. They're healthy. They're ready to roll. Jacksonville had to really work last week. I think injury wise, I think they're okay. But I just feel going to Kansas City, probably one of the loudest stadiums in the NFL. I feel that Mahomes will have a huge game, 300 plus yards, 3 touchdowns. And I feel that they'll just have Kelsey go crazy. So those are my predictions. On the Jacksonville side, Trevor Lawrence will have an average day. Travis Etienne will have a good day. And I think the big receiver is going to be Christian Kirk for Jacksonville. That's my prediction. But I agree with you. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I say 38-10, 38-13. Jacksonville, the script's going to read Jacksonville throwing the ball a lot. Because they'll be behind. They can't rely on the run game that much. It shouldn't be that close of a game, but I hope I'm wrong. I want a good game. I want a high scoring fantasy game, just because I love watching it. The next game, which I know you'll be watching, 8:15 your 8:15 your time. That's a late game for you, Kasey. You're going to tell your wife you're not going out dancing on Saturday night. You're staying home. You're not going out anywhere.
That's right.
If you need me to talk to her, I'm right here for you.
Yeah, I will send her to the boss.
So the Giants are playing the Eagles. It's in Philly, 7.5 point favorites are the Eagles. What's your thoughts on this game?
I don't count the Giants out. I know they got blown out in week 14 when everybody was playing. Week 18, they actually held their own without their starters in, and Jalen Hurts tried to play through his shoulder. It all comes down to how healthy Jalen Hurts' shoulder is. If if he's able to throw the ball well without pain and run without fear of getting hit, I think he's dynamic enough to win the game. I think the Giants cover the spread regardless, but I would say it could be anywhere. It'll be like a 28-24 or 24-21. And if things go the right way for the Giants, they could be the one with the 24 points.
I agree. I think it's going to be closer than people think. I think the spread's a little too high. I would take, if I was a betting man, which I am, I would take the Giants. I think they'll cover. I feel they're playing really good football. I feel their receivers are I like Richie James. I told you that. I think I love Bellinger, their tight end, the rookie tight end. I like him too. I feel that their receiving course doesn't get any respect, and I think they're doing a great job right now for Daniel Jones. Jones is running like a maniac. If he sees a hole where he can get 7-8 yards, he's running. I mean, he runs. He's not afraid. I think the Giants defense is stepping it up a little bit too. And I feel they're going to give the Eagles a good game. The Eagles have not been playing well. I know they've been hurt. I get it. But they have not been playing well at all. I mean, they're not playing like the team we saw the first 5 weeks. Totally, I think people are learning how to beat them. So I like the Giants with the points. I hope the Giants win. I'm rooting for you.
Oh, me too.
I don't want the Eagles in the Super Bowl. I really don't want the Eagles in the Super Bowl. I just can't stand their fans, obviously. A little too obnoxious for me. But they do have Jalen Hurts is going to be, he's
did I see something there that he signed a 6-year, $265 million deal?
He signed a huge extension. I think you're right. Yes. He signed a big extension. He deserves it. He's going to be in the league for many years. In fantasy, he'll be a top fantasy player for many years. And, congratulations if you drafted him in your dynasty league, because he's a good one. Good job, Kasey Shienvold.
Nice.
So let's move to Sunday. This is an early game for me. I have a softball game at 12:30.
Noon.
Actually.
Uh-oh.
This game's at noon, so I'll probably miss the first half. The Bengals are in Buffalo. Points 4.5. Buffalo's favored, obviously. They're in Orchard Park. I'm going to take the Bengals. You know what I'm saying. I like the Bengals. I think Burrow got the bad game out of his system. Burrow is a guy that just loves when people say he can't win. He loves when people say you have no chance to win the game. And I think he just steps it up. And I think the Bengals will learn from their mistakes last week. And I think they're going to beat Buffalo in Buffalo just to knock them out of the playoffs, because they're the Bills. They always lose. Come on.
The lovable losers, right?
I always say that about the Bengals, but I'm trying to reverse the tables. But Kasey, who do you like? What's your prediction on the game? Who are you rooting for? Who do you think is going to win? Let's hear it.
I think the Bills' best case scenario would be if the game is ugly, right? They have where it's just bad weather, bad conditions. Joe Burrow can't get a good grip on the football. Jamar Chase can't get deep. I think Buffalo will win if it's an ugly game. I think if the weather's like it was last weekend, I'm going to lean on the Bengals to pull the upset. I think it's going to be a turnover game again for Josh Allen, and they haven't proven they can dominate good competition yet.
I agree, and their defense isn't playing that great either. They're supposed to have this great defense.
They lost Von Miller, and Von Miller was huge for them in the pass rush.
Yeah. So we both like the Bengals. Is that what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah, I like the Bengals to win, not just cover. I don't know what the spread is, but.
So the last game, this reminds me of the old 80s when Joe Montana and Dwight Clark were playing, and there's a huge rivalry between the Cowboys and 49ers.
When Deion Sanders was going back and forth between the teams.
And we had Aikman. I mean, it was great back then with these two teams. I loved it. So we have the Cowboys, who are coming off a huge win. They looked great.
They did.
CeeDee
Lamb is playing inspired football right now.
Against one of the hottest teams in NFL. They haven't lost in they won 10 straight. Ever since they got McCaffrey, they lost the first game when McCaffrey played. They lost that game. Then they won all the rest of the games in a row.
Yeah.
So McCaffrey's healthy. He's playing. The 49ers are healthy. Again, the Cowboys looked really good. what's your prediction on this game? I'll go after you. What do you think is going to happen? Who's going to come out fantasy-wise big? What's your prediction?
My prediction is that San Francisco is going to win. I don't think they're going to win big, but their offense is too diverse. Like the one thing that you could do against the Bucs, Brady has been the worst quarterback this season when pressures, when he's under pressure, and he proved it there with missed passes and everything else. I don't think you get that type of opportunities against San Francisco because you have to worry about McCaffrey. You have to worry about Deebo Samuel. You have Ayuk. You have Kittle. There's too many weapons there. They're not going to try to do anything complex. Brock Purdy has been getting rid of the ball in rhythm, on time, every time. I think and that defense is much better than the Bucs defense. I don't see it being as close as some people might think.
So do you think Brock Purdy will be the starting quarterback for the 49ers next year?
I think if he wins this game, he deserves it.
So you think, even though he won all these games in a row, he hasn't lost, I don't think, ever since he took over, correct?
I don't think he has, no.
So you think if he wins this game, he'll be named the starting quarterback next season after being drafted last in the draft the year before?
I think he should be.
I'm not disagreeing. I mean, I just think it's amazing. I mean, we talked about it during like week 17 and 16, like who rather you start, Brock Purdy or like Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady.
I know. And how often were we saying?
And we were saying like Brock Purdy over Tom Brady.
Yeah. And we were right. Not only were we saying it, but we were right. You know, it's one thing to say it and then be wrong.
But I mean, it just shows you. I mean, I don't think this guy was on anybody's charts beginning of the season. There's no way that you said, guys, pick up Brock Purdy because by week 14 he'll be the starting quarterback for the 49ers.
He's the best there is, yeah.
And he'll be winning your league he'll be winning your league during the playoffs. I mean, I don't think that came out of your mouth. If it did, we're going to Vegas together.
I should have bet, right? Yeah.
You and I are going to Vegas. But I think this is going to be a closer game than people think. I think the Niners are playing great. I think Dallas is going to give them a really tough game. Dak Prescott looked good last night. He was throwing the ball well. He was hitting his receivers. The Dallas running game didn't look that great. Pollard wasn't getting the yards like he usually does, and Zeke was trying to score from short yardage. He was not getting in. So
Zeke only plays well when Pollard's out there playing well. I don't think he's a true lead running back anymore.
But I think you're right. I think the Niners will win the game. I think it's gonna be a close game. But if some weird stuff happens in that game, like some crazy turnovers, like what happened in the Bengal game,
if the Cowboys win, it's going to be an all NFC East, NFC Championship.
Can you imagine if the Cowboys are in the Super Bowl and all the craziness will go on in Arizona with all their fans and everything? And because Dallas is not that far from Phoenix, it's very close. It's a very close airline flight
compared to where everything else is. Yeah, I mean,
it's not that far, and their fans are loyal, and
Mahomes. Imagine if it's Kansas City, Dallas, because Mahomes is a Texas kid. Like he went to Tech, right? Texas Tech, and
the Texas Tech. His dad played baseball in Texas for the Rangers. I mean, you're 100% right.
It would be a fun Super Bowl to watch. Although I would rather watch the Giants take on the Bengals.
So we're down to
if that happens, by the way, I think you and I have to figure out a way to watch it together. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you come to LA and you watch it in my man cave.
There you go.
It'd be great. We'd go out for steak afterwards. It'd be the best. But yes, I mean, I'm excited. It's the Elite Eight. We're down to 8 teams, everybody. It should be a great weekend. I'm hoping I can watch all the games, hoping something doesn't come up. But it should be a great weekend. I mean, the NFL this season has been really fun. There've been a lot of great games. Out of all these 4 games, which game do you think will be the most exciting?
Giants Eagles. just
Okay.
because
The most exciting. Okay, like the closest.
Oh, the closest? Okay, the
Well,
closest,
closest by like, you're
the
watching
one
it.
that is like you're not really that I think could be the
You don't have to be
most.
invested at all on either
Okay,
team, but
Bills.
just
I
like
would
to see.
probably say then the Bills Bengals is the most evenly matched game in
So
that
you think
respect.
that's going to be the closest
I think
score?
it's going to be. I think it could either be an ugly game that goes like 9-14, or it could be an absolute shootout like you had in the Bills Chiefs game last year, where it was just the last quarterback with the football. Who it's Jamar Chase or Stephon Diggs is going to catch 4 touchdowns, and the other one's going to catch 3, and that's how the game's going to be decided.
I think the Bills have big motivation because they'll have Dumar's going to be on the sidelines, obviously, for Buffalo. He's walking around. He's he's, I don't want to say he's fine, but I think he's physically, I think he's okay. He doesn't
Yeah,
need like assistance. They're not really checking his heart. He'll be on the sidelines. I mean, what's going to happen is, this is another prediction, is, tell me if I'm right or wrong, to start the game, he'll be leading the tunnel.
yeah, he'll lead
He'll
him
be
out
the
of the
first guy
tunnel.
out with the team right behind him. What do you think, Kasey Shienvold? If
I
Ross the boss, right?
totally believe that. Yep.
And he'll be on the sidelines during the game. He'll be there for a great motivation thing. I agree, a great story. I still believe he'll play next year. I say he plays next
Hey, if he
year.
keeps recovering at the rate, I don't see, and they don't find anything electrical wrong with his heart coming into the summer, I don't see why he wouldn't try.
I mean, I think it's a great story. I love how we all got together. We raised like $9 million for his charity. If Buffalo beats Cincinnati, I hope they win the Super Bowl. I think it's a great story. The reason I'm not rooting for Buffalo is because they're playing my Bengals, but I do think
But
it's
if
a
they
great
beat your
story.
Bengals, then you're going to root for them, right?
Yeah, if they
So,
beat the Bengals, you and I would both root for them in the AFC. Yes.
yeah, absolutely.
And in the NFC, if the Giants, I want the Giants to actually win the NFC just because no one picked them. That's why
Right.
I
You
like
always
them.
like the underdog, right?
Yeah.
It could be an expensive offseason for the Giants if the Giants do very well, because you're going to have to now pay free agent prices if you want to keep Saquon and Daniel Jones. So
Saquon's a free agent,
they're
and
they're both on their 5th-year option.
is it like unrestricted?
I think it is, because they declined his 5th-year
Wow.
option.
He could be easily going someplace else.
I hope not, but
Where'd he go? He went to Penn State, right? He could stay on the
yeah.
East Coast.
Yeah. I mean, he could go to the Eagles. They could certainly. They already have one Penn State running back. Why not another? He could
Well,
go to the Commanders.
I think 90% of the teams will take Barkley as a starting running back. There's only a few teams
Yeah.
that don't want him. I mean, I think the Bengals would take him in a second. I think a lot of teams would take him.
He should go to
Pittsburgh.
Miami if he's smart. Go where it's warm. You got a dynamic offense, a young coach. Like,
There you go. Now you're thinking. Okay, well, we're back here on Thursday with Dr. Dan Ratner is going to be here, which we're all excited about. It should be a
1:30
great show.
Pacific, 4:30 Eastern.
And if you guys have, we'll talk just not football. We'll talk fantasy. We'll talk. We'll start talking baseball a little bit on Thursday. We'll start talking baseball next week. I just don't want to get to it today, just because I think the playoffs were so
Yeah, I think
great.
the playoffs are more exciting to talk about.
Yeah,
right
I
now.
think plus, but we are going to talk baseball, and basketball. As much as we all love fantasy basketball, it's such a niche little sport when it comes to fantasy. People want to hear football as much as you guys have basketball questions. Feel free to ask them. I'll be happy.
Ross is an expert at basketball.
I'm pretty good.
I can do good research.
And hockey, I know hockey also, but again, we're just keeping it football today, just because it's the big sport in the world right now.
My hockey knowledge stopped somewhere around 1994 when it was Matteau, and winning for the Rangers.
Richter and all those guys. I remember
Messier,
the Rangers when they won the cup.
Adam Graves, that whole team. Brian
all those
Leach.
days, well, I still follow hockey. We're a hockey family here. But thanks for watching. I'm Ross the Boss. That's Kasey, Vlad to the Bone, Shienvold. We'll be here on Thursday at 1:30 Pacific, 4:30 Eastern, and we're out of here.
Have a good night, everybody.